I was thinking this morning about how the Israelites were constantly complaining in the wilderness. And, I've always found that story so strange. Israel comes out of Egypt. They've seen the power of God demonstrated probably in the most material way that it had been demonstrated since the flood. He made them wealthy beyond measure. The amount of gold that they took out of Egypt, they practically plundered Egypt. And yet their complaint is about the fact that they're having to eat bread that magically appears on the ground and follow a pillar of cloud and a pillar of fire during the night to, kind of go wherever it is that they're supposed to be going. And I remember when I was young, I used to think like how silly that was, right? I think like, man, these Israelites, like this is ridiculous. Like God shows up as like on this mountaintop and it's like fire and, it's this magnificent display of who God is on the heels of all of the other stuff that he had done. And he speaks to them and he gives them the law. And there's so much going on here. And yet their complaint is about the type of food that they're getting. It just seemed like a people that were so somehow divorced from the reality of what was going on around them. Like their priorities were just so unbelievably out of order. It was it was just always hard to grasp. But what's interesting about that story is if you look at what they constantly said, they said, "Your God," speaking to Moses, "brought us out here to kill us. You might as well have just left us in Egypt." And when I really stopped to think about it, what I realized is that Israel had confidence in God's power because it had been fully displayed, both between what he did to Egypt and then the transition from Egypt to the wilderness, and even everything that he was doing in the wilderness. There's no doubt of God's power. And that's even demonstrated by the fact that their whole complaint is that God brought us out here to kill us, right? It was never an issue of, is God going to provide what we need? It was always an issue of their concern about what God's intentions were towards them. And as I found myself thinking about the season that I've been in and just how many times I've complained in this season, I've been so frustrated with the season that I've been in, even though the Lord has provided for our family very much miraculously. It might as well have been, magical food appearing on the ground every morning in the way that He's provided for us. And yet, I had the same complaint, frustrated constantly. I'm like, God, like, when are we going to be done with this just every single day, not knowing where the next thing is going to come from, not knowing where the next problem is going to come from, not knowing how the next thing is going to be resolved? All the while being surrounded by the unbelievably miraculous power of God happening in my life, an outpouring of wisdom in a way that I haven't had, God, probably in a decade. On top of all of the other encounters that I've had, the other things that I've seen, the ways that He's acted on our behalf. And yet here I am complaining about how frustrating it is to have to just persistently be reliant on Him every single second of every single day. And it's because we hate uncertainty. That's really what it was. Israel's whole issue wasn't with the fact that they didn't have meat. It wasn't with the fact that they were in a wilderness. It had not, I don't think it really had anything to do with all of those specific material issues. I really think at the end of the day, what it came down to was the uncertainty of what was going to happen next. Their whole life for 400 years, they had a stable environment. Now, the stable environment they were in was slavery, which was horrible, right? And they groaned about their slavery, but it was stable. It was the devil they knew. They could count on the Egyptians to expect them to get up every day and do their work, and they could count on their food to be supplied to them because if they didn't, then they wouldn't be able to do their work. They lived in an environment that, although it was a terrible environment, it was certain. But following God through the wilderness, there was no certainty. They had a destination that they were supposed to be moving towards, but they didn't have certainty about how they were going to get to that destination. And at every turn, the way that they would be provided for required them to be entirely reliant on the Lord, continuing to show up every single day. And the thing is, when manna, magic bread is coming up out of the ground or raining from heaven, wherever it came from, like when that's the thing that you're reliant on, and no one's ever seen that before. We don't have anything in our natural experience that is comparable to magic bread appearing on the ground. And so reasonably, you might wake up every day and go, is today going to be the day that the manna's not going to be there? Is today going to be the day that the cloud's not going to be there, that the pillar of fire is not going to be there? Is today going to be the day we're going to wake up and God's gone and here we are in this wilderness with no idea how to handle or take care of ourselves? And we've built our whole infrastructure of our life on this thing that we don't know if it's going to be there tomorrow. It's like the story of the rich young ruler. The man had great wealth, and Jesus says, take it, sell everything you have, give to the poor, and then come and follow me. And the man went away sad. And when you really look at that story, it's like, what was the issue? The issue is that if he sold everything he had and he gave it all away, and then he comes and follows Jesus, what happens if Jesus isn't the guy that he thinks he is? What happens if they get a little further down the way and Jesus suddenly dies? And then what? What is he left with? If Jesus doesn't come into his kingdom and fully restore everything, now this man has given up all of his infrastructure, everything that he had to supply his life is now gone. What happens if Jesus isn't who he thinks he is? And I honestly think this is what we struggle with in following the Lord. It's what happens if we leave the slavery, the devil we know. What happens if we leave the material way that we provide for ourselves? What happens if we leave all of the ways that we understand how to operate in this world and we come and follow him and we get out there into the wilderness and he isn't there? What happens if we follow him out there and he's providing miraculously, but what happens when the day comes that he doesn't? If I wake up and the manna isn't there, what does that mean? And truthfully, all of this has to do with knowing God. Yeah, we can look at everything that he's created, and there's no question of his power. There's no doubt about what his power is. But we do doubt his intentions. In the depths of our soul, I've been walking with the Lord for 20 years. 20 years. He has showed up for me and my family over and over and over again. And I am ashamed to say that I still have days, months, weeks, years, where I wake up and I'm uncertain of whether the man is going to be there the next day, even though he has consistently showed up and provided for our family. I'm ashamed to say that I still have days where I complain and I'm like, God, would you just give me a stable income? Would you just give me something stable in this life so that I don't have to constantly wake up and wonder, is today going to be the day that you're not going to provide? I imagine God sometimes has to be sitting up there thinking, what do I have to do to get you to trust me? What do I have to do to get you to feel comfortable to just stand on this water? Because if you're with me, this water is more stable than the land you're standing on without me. It is so frustrating to be in this weak flesh that has no trust. Man, may the Lord enhance our trust, mine and all of yours who are watching this right now. Shh.